Welcome back to Guitar Animal. I'm Jesse. I'm leading you through the first 5 episodes of what to do and look ahead to as a complete beginner. Basically, shaping your framework for the language you need to learn to play guitar, interact with other musicians, play songs you want to by ear, improvise how you want, jam with other people. This is what you need to know, and you're not going to be able to do it all at once, that is for sure. This takes months of practice, just laying out the path you need to take, what practice you need to do. Right now, this is just the zoomed out view of things. First, this is about scales. Here's a scale in the key of A. Okay, those are the 7 notes in A major. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Back to the home note. And then it hangs unresolved on that 7th note in the scale. When you land back on the home note or the key, it feels resolved. That's why it's called the home note. It's the note that feels like home within that key. So if you hear a song, we're working on Bad Fish. We've been doing some Sublime recently. That's just what came up. We've been playing a song in the key of A called Bad Fish. A, D, G, back to A, back to the key. So notice how each chord brings that song to a new emotional territory. It makes a tension, an emotional tension. You can play through the chord progression again and just listen for that emotional tension that it builds. It's kind of peaceful, but also kind of hopeful. A little more serious tone to that. Okay, so it's pretty mellow tune, but it makes sense because it's pretty heavily reggae based. So it stays pretty even keeled, but there's a little bit of emotional draw there. Not too much because they're all also major chords. If we were to throw a minor in there, let's just say, let's do D minor on the way through that progression. That sounds kind of twisted and dark. Sounds like a totally different song. So going back to A, here's the A note, root note, and then I'm going. And that's the rote memorization that you need to have down in order to improvise. So I can play the A major scale, the 7 notes in the A major scale, starting from the bottom A root note to the top A root note. In 5 different patterns across the fretboard, but if we pick one of those patterns, that's A. I can shift that down, use the same exact pattern to E root notes, and I'll play the same pattern I just played on A, but I'll play the E major scale. There's the E, and now I'll shift to A again. Same exact pattern with my fingers on the fretboard, and depending on the root note I start at, that's the key that scale is going to be in. So there are multiple E notes on the fretboard, and you can find any of them like here. And you know, if you play the pattern like that, in that shape, that physical shape, you're going to play the notes in the E major scale. what physical pattern you do depends on which E root note you choose. If it's the one on the G string, it's going to run in this pattern. Don't worry about getting the specific fingerings down now. We're not getting into the specifics. This is just the big picture, what you can do with scales. We're working on the E scale. Let's play another Sublime song to see how we can build riffs out of scales now. So, Santeria. Here is the E. This is a bar chord E in this shape. Here's the E scale with the E root notes. So see how the that shape, it's basically the C shape with this finger acting as the bar or the capo or the nut here, holding these strings down. And then the C shape right here on the root note of the E. Okay. Okay, so some riffs built out of that scale of E. All in chords that are on the E scale, in the key of E. And then improvising with the scale, take the same shapes that you do have to learn, rote memorize through muscle memory for each root note, but so that means only about 5 patterns is all you need to learn. And then you can play riffs based off of those patterns. So here for Santeria, the chord progression, and then this riff comes in. So it's just a little bridge in the song, a little transition. And then a little noodling in the E scale. Repeat the riff. I'm just approximating how I remember the song. And then back to the chord progression. All in E, all chords in the E key, all notes in the E scale. So that's how you basically build a song out of learning what the scales are. The chord progression is built on the E scale, as far as these notes, the bass notes that you would use for like finding the home key of the song. And the riffs inside of it, and solos or noodling that goes on inside the scale as well. And the resolve root note, the note that feels like home. All right, thanks for joining. This is Jesse with Guitar Animal, and I will see you next time.